What if the light you're looking for is already inside you? In a narrow street full of shadows, there was a tiny candle shop. The old wooden sign, weathered by years of rain and sun, swung gently in the breeze. Inside, the air smelled of beeswax, lavender, and something warm like a forgotten memory. Shelves climbed the walls, packed with candles of every color and size imaginable. There were tall, slender tapers that looked like they belonged in a castle, short, stout pillars that promised to burn for days, and tiny tea lights that flickered like captured stars. The shop owner's daughter, a young girl named Lina, grew up amidst this world of wax and wicks. She spent her childhood watching her father, a man whose hands were always stained with dye and smelled faintly of smoke. He was a true artisan. With a quiet focus, he would pour molten wax, carefully centering the wicks, his movements a slow practice dance. Lina would sit on a small stool nearby, trying to copy him. She'd use a small, discarded mold, her little fingers fumbling as she dripped wax, creating misshapen but loved creations of her own. She learned the secrets of the trade without even realizing it, how a certain blend of wax could burn cleaner, how a thicker wick could withstand a breeze, and how a hint of jasmine could soothe a worried mind. Whenever the old town's power grid gave out, which happened more often than not, their small shop would become the heart of the neighborhood. As darkness fell over the streets, people would hurry towards the warm glow spilling from their doorway. The power's gone again. They'd call out, and her father would greet them with a calm smile, his hands moving swiftly to wrap candles. Lina would watch as their tiny shop single-handedly lit up the night, one customer, one flame at a time. The whole neighborhood, plunged into darkness, would soon be dotted with the gentle, dancing lights from their store. But as Lina grew older, a shadow began to grow inside her. While she loved the shop and her father, she felt trapped by its familiarity. All her friends were leaving for the big city, dreaming of becoming doctors, artists, and engineers. They had grand ambitions and exciting futures. "I only know candles," she would often think to herself, her voice a quiet whisper in the back room. "My whole world is just wax and string. I'm not special. I'm not important." She would sit there for hours, hugging her knees, surrounded by the flickering flames she knew so well. The candles that brought light and comfort to everyone else only seemed to highlight the darkness she felt within. One autumn evening, a fierce storm rolled in from the coast. It wasn't just rain. It was a tempest. The wind howled like a hungry wolf, rattling windows in their frames. Thunder cracked overhead, so loud it felt like the sky was tearing apart. Then, with a final violent shudder, the entire town went black. Not just a flicker, but a complete, unnerving failure of the power grid. Inside the shop, the candles on the shelves wavered as if in fear. In the sudden chaos, her father rushed to gather more supplies. But the floor was slick with rainwater that had been blown in under the door. He slipped, his feet going out from under him, and he fell hard. A sharp cry of pain echoed through the small space. He clutched his leg, his face pale in the candlelight. He tried to get up, but the pain was too great. "My leg," he gasped. "Lina, I can't stand. On the shelves, the candles wobbled precariously, their flames casting long, dancing shadows that made the room feel like it was alive with fear. Just then, frantic knocking started at the door. It grew louder and more urgent. Hello? Is anyone in there? A voice shouted over the storm. Outside, children were crying, their small voices lost in the wind. The entire street was a sea of absolute fear and darkness. Through the glass, Lina could see the faint, useless beams of flashlights with dead batteries and the desperate silhouettes of her neighbors. Their faces pressed against the pane, searching for a sign of hope. The weight of their fear felt heavier than the storm itself. Lina's hands trembled. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She felt small and completely helpless. She was just the candlemaker's daughter, not a leader, not a hero. But then she felt her father's hand on hers. He looked at her, his eyes full of pain, but also an unwavering trust. Ada? He whispered, his voice strained but clear. Lina, you know what to do. You've always known. He pressed the cold, heavy shop keys into her trembling palm. They felt like an impossible responsibility. For a moment, she just stared at them, the weight of the whole town seemingly resting in her hand. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, she stood up. She picked up a single slender taper and a box of matches. Her first strike failed, the matchstick snapping in her nervous fingers. The second one flared to life. She touched it to the wick, and a small, steady flame bloomed in the darkness. That first light gave her courage. She lit another candle from the first, then another, and then dozens. Soon, a warm, golden glow began to push back the oppressive night, filling the shop with a gentle, reassuring light. The room grew warmer, brighter, and the terrifying shadows began to retreat. With newfound resolve, Lina unlocked the door. A rush of wind and rain met her, but she stood her ground. She saw the frightened faces of her neighbors and knew what she had to do. Form a line, she said, her voice surprisingly steady. One at a time. She began handing out candles, not as a shopkeeper, but as a guardian of light. To one person, she gave a sturdy pillar candle. To a family with small children, she gave several tea lights. Cup your hands around the flame to shield it from the wind, she instructed gently. She showed them how to walk carefully to protect their precious light against the raging storm. People took their candles and stepped back out into the maelstrom, but this time, they weren't returning to darkness. They carried light. Soon, tiny, fragile circles of light began to move through the neighborhood. From a bird's-eye view, the dark, rain-swept town was transformed. Little golden dots spread out from the candle shop, moving down streets and into homes like seeds of hope being planted in the night. Each light was a small victory against the storm, a beacon of community in the face of fear. As the last person was about to leave, an old woman with a face as wrinkled as a dried apple turned back. She took Lina's hand, her own frail but warm. The candle she held cast a soft glow on their faces. "Thank you, my dear," she said, her voice filled with a quiet gratitude. "You didn't just sell us candles tonight." shared courage. She squeezed Lina's hand one last time before disappearing into the night, her small flame held high. Lina stood in the doorway of the now quiet shop, watching the last of the lights find their way home. The rain was softening, the wind was calming down. She caught her reflection in the dark glass of the shop window. For the first time, she didn't see just a candlemaker's daughter. She saw a young woman surrounded by a warm, resilient glow that came not just from the candles, but from within her. She saw a carrier of light. Your skills, your passions, the things you do every day might feel small or ordinary to you. But you never know when your ordinary skill will be exactly what someone needs in their darkest night. You don't have to shine like the sun to make a difference. Sometimes a single candle lit in the right moment is more than enough to save the evening. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to learn English with stories for more.